My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith and I host the Scars and Guitars podcast. This is my conversation with the frontman for the band For All Eternity. His name is Shane Carrol, and the reason for the discussion was to promote the band's then upcoming new release, which is called The Will to Rebuild. Let's hear what Shane has to say. Here we go. I've got to tell you, I did ask for an advance copy, which you duly delivered, and mate, you guys are to be congratulated on a heck of a bloody release here. I've interviewed...
Oh, thank you.
I've interviewed over 170 artists this year, and which of course means that I've dived into their albums, mate. And mate, you know, it's not just for a metalcore release, but for an overall metal release, you've really got it all going on there. You can really tell the attention to detail that you've put in.
Oh, thank you, mate. No, I do appreciate that. We've gone to, I guess, the furthest lengths that we ever have as a band to make something, you know, unique and great and intricate. So, no, very appreciative, mate. Thank you.
So I really like the video for the cut Derailed, actually. And from what I've heard from the album, you know, I've listened to it probably 2 or 3 times since I got access to the MP3s via Haulix. So the album's called The Will to Rebuild for the listener. Sorry, I should let you know, mate, I am recording this for the purposes of releasing it as a podcast episode. I guess
of course.
I guess you gathered that when I said I hosted a radio show. So anyway, I'll continue. Mate, but your new album, it's an album that I feel is going to give you guys a profile in Europe and stateside. But, mate, you've already got one there, as I've just found out because I've gone to your Facebook page, and you've got well over 50,000 likes, which is rather large for an Australian band. You know, so how did you get so many bloody Facebook likes? Because they're legit, aren't they? That's genuine. That's not bots or bought likes, isn't it?
I think we've just been really fortunate. We got on. I mean, in terms of on Facebook, we've been really in the mix with advertising and outreach on our Facebook page for years and years. We've had in excess of, going back as far as say, I would even say that in 2013, 2014, we've had in excess of 35, 40,000 likes. So. Yeah, we've been really fortunate. I guess, like you said, mate, we do have quite a following over in the US. And interestingly, different streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music now grant artists like us to see the back end of who's streaming our music and things like that. And yeah, it's crazy to see some of the countries that our music's being listened to. But yeah, I think it's to do with our style of music. I think it's a very approachable, I guess, brand of metal that we put out. And yeah, I guess especially in the States, like many times we've been on tour with American bands and things like that, and all the time they've always just told us that the style of music you guys play, the sound you guys have is just so perfect for the US market. And I guess we've always been aware of that, so we've always been really, really thoughtful to market ourselves over there, and consequently, we've got a pretty great following there. So,
yeah. So, I've got a few questions, but I think what I'm going to do is I had planned to ask some other questions. God, I'll start again. I was going to talk about the album, but what I want to do actually now is we'll get to that. But what I want to do is I want to talk about the fact that you are a band from Sydney, and you are a rare band from Sydney that's broken large. It must be said. Now, I've got no doubt that Sydney has its own thriving metal scene, but there really hasn't been many bands rise to national and international prominence for decades. There's really yourself and Die Hard as Murder at the moment, and we could almost claim Lauren Hart from Once Human, but she's an American national who just happened to spend some time in Australia. So, mate, a question for you is that how well supported are you through your Sydney shows, and how is the support you've received locally? How does that fare when you could compare it to, say, what you get in Melbourne or Brisbane or even when you go to the US?
Well, interestingly, mate, I guess just with the changing, the changing of the music scene in terms of, people largely, streaming music now. The music industry is a very different place to, like, whereas I would say, we in 2013, 2014, we were on tours all year round. We were very consistently on the road, traveling all over Australia and New Zealand. We've been very fortunate to, be on some really amazing tours with some amazing bands. we've actually taken the touring side of things back a peg over the last maybe couple of years. We've actually only played. This is funny to say. We've only played one show in 2017, which was actually in California. We played a festival, which was a label showcase, a 20-year anniversary label showcase for our label, Face Down Records, over in California. But we did an awesome Australian tour last year, which we were so stoked. We had such a great turnout. Pretty much the best headlining shows I've ever played. Not only just in Sydney, but in Brisbane and Melbourne as well. And yeah, like I was saying, just the change of climate in terms of the music scene, and young bands coming through. You wouldn't think so much unless you really thought about it. But a local music scene is really in the hands of new bands being created, like new bands coming together in the area and stirring interest in, when you play a show, you get a whole bunch of local talent on the bill to support. And truthfully, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot less local bands popping up. So not to say that the market isn't there anymore, but it's definitely. I mean, people are much more selective in shows they attend and events that are going on. Mm-hmm. Whereas, in 2000, like back in the touring days of our band, you go to 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 shows a month, and that would just be the norm, Whereas now people are more selective. You go to a couple of shows a month, or maybe even every couple of months. So, but in saying that, mate, yeah, like I said, we did a tour September last year, which was the best headlining tour we've done in the entirety of our band. So we're finding that a bit of more of a selective approach is paying off when we're on the road and when we're touring, instead of people just saying, oh, we'll just catch for all eternity on the next tour. People are engaged to come out because of, I guess, the fact that we've dialed it back that bit, and us being on the road is not a rare thing, but definitely a more few and far between experience. So we've just announced some shows throughout New South Wales for January, which we're really excited about. We're playing some shows with some other really amazing bands. So, but yeah, no, the support at home has been fantastic, mate. But yeah, I guess that's the way the music scene is at the moment. So
as I say, mate, I've done over 170 interviews so far this year, and only a fraction of them have been with Australian bands, and you're only the second artist from Sydney that I've interviewed. The others have all come from Melbourne, Western Australia, or Perth more specifically.
Well, there you go, mate. It sounds like there's definitely a shortage of bands coming out of Sydney at the moment. We sort of, I'm 39, okay, so when I think about big bands, I'm thinking about, I know In Excess started in Perth, but they really gained their prominence through their time in Sydney. Midnight Oil came from Sydney, AC/DC, mate, and it's just been this big gap. And now, as I say, there's yourselves, Diarda's Murder, and Toe to Toe were doing some pretty cool stuff there for a period of time. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Northlane as well. They're a band based out of Sydney. They're doing some pretty great things on an international scale.
They are. I'm familiar with them. I didn't realise they were from Sydney though. So there's a third one there. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, no, you're right, mate. There's definitely a very finite amount of acts coming out of Sydney. So we definitely regard ourselves as very fortunate to have the platform we do and the reach we do, and to have so many people around the world listen to our music, mate. It's quite surreal. Yeah,
cool, mate. All right, look, let's talk about the album, because, man, I'm gushing in praise of the album. The production is phenomenal. We'll get to that. But
appreciate that, man.
But, mate, the songs are there. The key thing is the songs are there, and, mate, I do understand that the lyrics you pen are deeply personal and they reflect your individual experience.
Absolutely.
But, mate, in your own words, tell us about your lyrical approach on The Will to Rebuild.
Well, mate, so, long story short, and it's... I guess the shortened version is what I'll say now. The longer version is, I guess explicitly detailed in the lyrics. But, we, as a band, like I said, we've definitely had a different approach to how we go about the band and what we do in terms of releasing music and touring and things like that. And so, probably about the time we were on tour last year, actually, we decided that we wanted to write a new album. So we got off tour in September, finished up tour in September, and got to write a new album. And basically, I went through a really, really dark time, a real intense personal ordeal. I actually split up with my wife. So I'd been married for 3 years. And,
Yeah, no good, mate.
I mean,
Sorry about that.
yeah. No, you're right, mate. No, that's okay. Under pretty dire and dark circumstances, I split up with my wife, and I mean, it just put me into a deep dark hole that I thought that I could just never climb out of, and just the timing of everything and how everything came to be. You know, you often hear about people, you know, trying to claw their way back to life, and they do it through, you know, drugs or alcohol or, you know, self-harm even, some people. With me, I just wrote my thoughts down. I wrote what I was going through. I just wrote it on paper. I wrote it on my phone. I'd be somewhere, and something would just come to me, just born out of grief, born out of this heartbreak that I was enduring. And at the time, I don't know if you've ever gone through grief or heartbreak yourself, mate, but I was bedridden. I didn't get out of bed for a month, I think.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
You know, I'd barely eaten. I barely slept. I went from not sleeping at all, like an amount of probably 2-3 hours a night, in some instances not even at all, to then just not being awake. So my body just, I mean, at times my mind was optimistic, and I thought, yeah, I'm getting through this, you know, a couple months down the track, but my body was still in this stage of grief. And yeah, like I said, mate, I just wrote, and I just was able to really, I was able to just really write down everything and anything that I was experiencing at the time. And interestingly, you know, when we had decided to write the new record, there was no real angle for me, content-wise, lyrically. And I mean, not to say that it was a good thing that I went through, but I mean, the silver lining is definitely that, you know, at the time we had this, you know, I had this outlet that was, you know, my guitarist, the guitarist of the band, Nicholas Page, you know, he had started writing some really amazing songs, really emotive stuff. And we had discussed in the past to have a really present and full element of sort of like what you would find in a movie soundtrack, to just really emotive, really big soundscapes. And it just turns out that, at the time, you know, I had this really emotive and personal subject matter to just pair up with this music we were making. And yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous thing, music. I put it this way, you know, speaking to a few different people, you know, I feel like I am the person I am today, and I'm out the other side, and I'm better now because of my ability to have written those things down. It's similar like this. I'll put it this way: if you've got something in your head, you're like, I know I need to do this, right? It stays in your head, stays in your head, stays in your head. But if you want to forget it, you write it down on paper. Okay, you write it down on paper, and you can just let go of it because you know it's on paper there. I don't need to remember that anymore. I've put it in my catalogue in my phone. I've put it in my diary or something, and that's just like what happened with these songs. I was able to write down. I was able to put my heartbreak on paper in these songs, and then it just went. It's tremendous. It really is, and it's been a huge part of my healing process. So.
Yeah, no, well, congratulations, mate, on finding a use for it, to be frank, mate, because I think that's what we need to do whenever we experience tragedy or heartbreak, to your exact point. And look,
absolutely.
I've had mates that have gone through divorces, and the stuff they've shared with me, I really don't ever want to go through personally, to be quite honest with you, because, I mean...
Absolutely not. It's not something you want in your life, no way.
No, that's it, mate. And, mate, have you got kids?
I don't, no. I'm fortunate. I'm only still a young guy. I'm just turned 27, so we had been speaking about it, but yeah, I won't dive too much deeper on the.
No, that's fair enough. Yep.
Yeah, but
yep. No, that's fair enough.
Very fortunate. No kids. Nothing in life to really cling me on to that person anymore. So I'm able to just sort of wash my hands of it and walk away.
All right. Well, as you say, mate, the silver lining is you've got a fantastic album, or you've been inspired, if that's the right word. Sorry, I don't know how else to say it, but to create this wonderful album,
inspired,
mate. So, and mate, you worked with Josh Schroeder, who has worked with Ghostbath on that truly bizarre album that they released. I can't remember the name of it, but I released it.
That's right.
I reviewed it, and I didn't know.
I think it's a self-titled release, maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about it. Look, I respect any artists to do what they need to do, but it just sounded to me like so much like he'd listened to what Deaf Heaven were doing and then put his own truly unique take on it. And then I started hearing things like the Top Gun soundtrack through it as well, and I thought, oh God, what's this going on here?
What have they done?
Yeah,
we spoke to Josh about it because I think he was. I mean, his recollection of that experience recording those guys was really great. And I've only heard bits and pieces, but is it true that the guy doesn't actually have any lyrics? He's just wailing on the tracks. Is that right?
I'm not sure. That'd actually make a little bit of sense.
I don't think there's any lyrics. I think the guy literally on the tracks will just be making noise with his like just yelling.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. It's basically yelling. Yeah, there's another band called Boltzer, is it, or Blotzer, and there's another one called Mantar where they're just yelling.
Okay.
And look, I'm trying not to be critical of artists, mate, because we've all got our own creativity to mind. But my God,
absolutely,
it's virtually unlistenable.
There's a listener base for that stuff, man. Power to them, eh?
Power to them, indeed.
Absolutely.
I try to be. I rarely give negative reviews, mate. I've done a ton of reviews this year, but I had to go there a couple of times. And on the Ghostbath one, I tried to be as objective as I possibly can. But the key thing is, mate, and with relative to your release here, mate, is the sound of the album is wonderful. So Josh has also worked with, that's the Ghostbath album, I should point out, but Josh has also worked with In Heart's Wake, who are a wonderful band, and I think you guys have done some touring with them or done some shows with them.
We have. Well, interestingly, in January we're actually playing some shows with those guys. They're doing a regional tour of Australia, and they've asked us to come along and play some shows throughout New South Wales with them, which is going to be really great. So. Yeah, we've been mates with those guys for quite a while. We've done tours with them in the past, and you know they're doing so great. We're so stoked for those guys. You know, they've just finished up a European headline tour and a American headline tour and stuff. Those guys are they're on another wavelength now. And you know, I look back on, you know, we were just sort of kids, sort of playing local shows together in Sydney, and yeah, they're just going from strength to strength. And yeah, Josh is really fond of those guys as well. You know, he's found himself very affectionate towards the Aussies, I must say.
Good on him, mate. So how did you connect with him? Was it through the In Heart's Wake connection?
No, not through In Heart's Wake actually. So our label, Face Down Records, quite a few artists on the label there have actually recorded with Josh. And it was first put to us by our label A&R Jason Dunn, who said that every dealing he's had with Josh has just been fantastic in the past. And basically, we had a few prospective producers lined up for the record, and what we did was we just opened line of communication with a few different people and just started speaking to people and getting their vibe and you know, for us, we really want to work with people who really understand our vision for our music and our sound. So, you know, we did speak with a few different people, and there was something about Josh. He just straight away latched straight onto it, loved the ideas, was quick to start, I guess, giving his own take on things, which showed us real confidence that he had an understanding of what we're trying to achieve, which was it just felt so right. And honestly, when we went over there to Michigan, you know, I think it was April, May this year, earlier this year, to do some recording over there, and the whole experience was just fantastic. We've recorded with a producer by the name of Brian Hood in the past too. I mean, we'd only ever recorded a record with him in the past, apart from singles and different bits and pieces here and there, but we've done 2 records previously with a producer by the name of Brian Hood, who actually no longer produces bands anymore. I'm sure you're aware of this realm of producers releasing Kemper bundles and you know, I guess empowering people at home to record their own material and things like that. So he sort of moved into that realm. So he wasn't even an option anymore, which actually worked out to be really great because working with Josh he was the polar opposite of working with Brian. Brian was very particular, very, very clinical, and almost automated in a way that Josh just wasn't. Josh was living and breathing. He wanted things to not be perfect. He thought that the real emotion came out in the imperfections and the real nature of the vocal take or the guitar take.
And I'd agree with
that.
I'd agree with him 100% on that. Actually,
absolutely.
Yeah,
no,
it's awesome.
It's amazing. It's amazing to get such a fresh take on it. Whereas with Brian, I'd be in the vocal booth and I'd do a take, and my voice might have done, buckled or done a little pop or something like that, and Brian would be like, no, didn't do it perfect, do it again. And our clean vocalist Michael would go in the booth and his voice would just do a little something. It's like, no, not perfect, do it again. Whereas with Josh, the noticeable difference was sometimes things like that happen, and he would just be like, you know what, that was a bit funny, but let's keep it. That sounds great. And in hindsight, some of these little isms, these little, I guess, these human traits coming through in our vocal performances is actually what is memorable about tracks that I enjoy in many different ways. It's definitely a fantastic experience working with Josh. He's a super friendly guy, and mate, it was honestly one of the best experiences I've ever had in the studio. So
good on you,
regrets there, mate. Fantastic. Yeah.
Hey, good question to ask you then. After we both agree that it's better to have a performance that reflects the emotion that's gone into recording the track.
Absolutely.
What did you think of the latest Suicide Silence album? So I'll tell you my thoughts after you give me yours, if that's okay. Had to go there.
If I'm very honest, I maybe listened to 2 tracks once, and I was. See, it's interesting because I feel like there are some genres. I get where you're coming from, because I feel like that album is very raw and very organic, I should say. But I feel like there's some genres of music where, I guess, sounding mechanical and sounding really concise is a really great thing. For instance, Diet is Murder. I actually grew up with the drummer of Diet is Murder, Lee. And he is just an absolute gun on the drums, so clinical, so perfect in his delivery, live and in the studio. The guy is just out of this world, and I personally love that about that genre. How mechanical it is, how it just sounds like a war machine. You know what I mean? And I think that was just lacking from the new Suicide Silence record. I didn't think that it sounded. It sounded. Oh, how do I put my finger on it? It just sounded a bit gluggy, maybe a bit even, maybe a little underproduced. I don't know. What are your thoughts, mate? What are your thoughts?
Well, I had a chat to Dan Kenny at the beginning of the year. Of course, he's Suicide's bass player. Wonderful guy. And we're both big Metallica fans, so we're able to connect on that level. And I hadn't really had a good listen to the album when I had a chat to him, and I could hear he was a little bit apprehensive when we were talking about the album and like, do you like it? What do you think? And I thought, well, look, I've heard the tracks that have been made available on Apple Music, and look, it sounds okay. To be honest, mate, I'm an old metal fan, so I'm kind of used to the Ross Robinson thing. You know what I mean? From the Korn days and Sepultura. So I know what Ross Robinson's production sounds like. And I think if you hadn't had that, if you like, grounding and that experience listening to some of the albums that Ross has produced, it's a complete right angle. But, mate, to me, it just sounds like a Ross Robinson-produced album. There are some left-of-centre moments, a bit of Sonic Youth moments, as I like to call them, throughout the album. But I don't... I totally understand what you're saying, making the Die Artist Murder comparison. There's a point that I need to make. I think that their drummer, Tu Lee, is probably the best drummer we have in Australia at the moment. Having seen them live... Yeah, watching him perform at the Meshuggah gig here at the Tivoli in Brisbane in the Valley before they Daya came back. Sorry, start again. Daya were the band. Yeah, it was CJ. Yeah, they came back with CJ.
CJ.
I think that was his
Wasn't
third or
that
fourth.
triumphant?
Well, I did a write-up for Metal Obsession about it, and that's what I felt it was. I thought it was a return to form, and he's basically taken his place where he needed to be, CJ needed to be. And I don't know the guys, I've never met them, but that drummer, I tell you what, holy shit was I impressed. He actually reminded me, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't give a drummer a better compliment than this, but he reminded me of the two Morbid Angel drummers, Pete Sandoval and more particularly Tim Young. He's just dead on.
Yeah.
You know, he's an absolute
Unreal.
weapon.
Yeah, Tim Young, he's a freak, isn't he?
Well, if you know Tim Young, he's probably my favourite metal drummer of all time. You know, his work with Hate Eternal.
I met him when I was a little kid, mate. When I was about 18, I met that guy, and I was like, "Oh, look, Tim Young."
That's wicked, mate. Tell me. I'm interested. Tell me a story. Tell me a Tim Young story.
The Tim Young story. Oh, geez, what was it? In Soundwave 2008, I believe he was playing. What was it? Is the band called?
Well, like a rock band that he was in it. Well, not a rock band, but they weren't certainly a death metal band, were they?
Divine Heresy, I think they were called.
Okay, gosh, I'm not familiar with that one. Yeah.
Is that the guy we're talking about, Tim Young?
It would be. Yeah, he's done a ton of stuff, and I have no. Yeah,
It was a side project that he did with Dino Cazares.
Yeah, that's him, mate. Yeah, that's the one. Yep, spot on.
Yeah,
I forgot about that project. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, I mean, I was only a young guy then, but it was what was it? It was a Sydney sidewave. Actually, you know what? It was 2008, but obviously it was early in the year. I hadn't even turned 18 yet, so I was 17 at the time. Now, as you said, it was a sidewave for the band As I Lay Dying. Do you know As I Lay Dying?
I do, mate. Yeah, not well, but I've certainly heard of the band. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a Sydney sidewave, and all the Divine Heresy guys were just there attending. And I actually went up and I got a photo with Tommy Vex, who was the front man of the band at the time. I got a photo with I can't remember the bassist name. I don't think Dino was there, but I got a photo with Tim Young, and the guy was such a beast. He was just completely ripped, and I was just freaking looking at this guy. I'm like, man, you're an absolute monster. And mate, the guy, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'd actually, so it was in the forum. It's not called the forum anymore, but I actually snuck downstairs to the 18 plus area, which is where I saw those guys, and I was actually in a place I wasn't meant to be in when I saw them and got photos of them. So a little bit of photographic evidence that I was somewhere I shouldn't have been. But I'll tell you what, those blokes, they were absolutely pounding beers like the thirstiest blokes you've ever seen. And I was there with my mate Jeremy, who's actually the guitarist in my band now. And yeah, we're only young guys there. And I remember at that show, I actually did a mic grab from a band called Haste the Day. A band called Still Remains, a metal band. They broke up some years ago, but I actually did a mic grab for this band Still Remains, and that is the first time that I can recall the first time I ever screamed.
Right. Yeah, gotcha. It was just one of those situations where let's do this.
Just one of those spur of the moment. So my first ever scream took place because I was front and center for this band that I used to love because I'd snuck downstairs to an 18 plus area, and got a mic grab there. And would you believe it? Probably about 20 minutes after I got that mic grab, I was found out to have been in the wrong area, and I got kicked out of the gig and didn't even get to see As I Lay Dying. So didn't get to see off those Divine Heresy guys either. But yeah,
wicked,
that Tim Young. I remember he did some videos with Dino. Playing some of those Divine Heresy songs, and that'd probably be some of the first sort of like playthrough content I had seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the guy has. I remember just thinking the guy just has the fastest double kicks I'd ever seen.
Yeah, they're inhuman. I think Lee's not too far behind him, if not on par, actually, with him.
Yeah, you're right.
After what I saw, he's just he's. Look, I'm a bass player by trade. I also play guitar, but look, I'm a big fan of drumming and percussion, so I do tend to pay very close attention to that at live performances because I think drummers either can do it, to be honest with you, or they can't. They struggle. But mate, I didn't
Yeah,
just hear
okay, yeah,
him
wow.
I didn't just hear Lee doing it the night that I saw him at the Tivoli with Meshuggah, mate. I heard him thriving, and
That's,
look,
just in his element.
yeah, mate, but it looked effortless, for him. He had the Rob Hurst from Midnight Oil forearm up. He puts his forearm up and sort
Yeah,
of just
yeah, he does.
brings it down, and it's like he's a metronome, really, isn't it? I'm trying to find the visual
Yes,
reference for a
exactly
metronome.
right. No, he's like an actual robot for sure.
Yeah, robot. There you go. It's robotic
Absolute
almost.
precision, just absolute precision. It's incredible. It's incredible to watch.
So, mate, let's go back to talking about you guys because, look, you guys are already doing it overseas. There's no two ways about it. But I do feel as though you are tailor-made for further success abroad. And we got another band. I think they're from Melbourne, although I think this singer's they're from Brisbane actually, but the singer's from Melbourne, and you probably know them. You might be mates with them, but that's A Version's Crown, who I think are kicking goals.
A Version's Crown, yes.
Yeah, they're kicking goals stateside.
Yeah, they've just signed. I think they just signed to Nuclear Blast. Is that correct?
Spot on. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they released a killer album this year.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it. Sorry, but it's
so heavy, just massive band.
Yeah, they're easily, for my money, they're the heaviest deathcore band around, along with Rings of Saturn. The guy,
Awesome.
The guys in Rings of Saturn who are good guys as well. But mate, what kind of promotion and touring are you planning on doing to support the album? Because it's got long legs, this album that you guys have released.
Yeah, no, we think so too, mate. I mean, this album. I mean, I'm not sure if you've. I mean, you were saying that you've listened to this new record. I'm not sure if you've heard much of our previous material, but this album for us is a massive leap, mate. It's on a different wavelength entirely. I think it has potential to build the profile of the band, like you said, mate, at home and abroad, much further than any of our previous material has. So at the moment, we're building a team in the States, which is looking really good at the moment to get some US tours happening, as well as potentially Europe. So it's really exciting. Obviously, the industry is very difficult over there, mate. You need to have the right key people in place, pushing the band for tours and different bits and pieces like that. But yeah, I definitely think we're in the driver's seat now with a new record. Obviously, mate, it's just releasing music is vital to any band. And when we decided to release this new record, we're definitely in the headspace that, if we're able to create what we want to create, we know that it can take us pretty far. So, currently getting things in place with that. Currently talking to a few different promoters in Australia about doing some more Australian touring, which, as I told you, has been great. Was great for us last year. We'll probably do it again a little later in the 2018. But yeah, mate, looking up, looking forward. There's plenty on the horizon. There's even some prospect to a Japan as well. So, mate, very exciting. There's a lot of really good bands popping up in the States at the moment that are really, I guess, likened to what we're doing. So, I think the market, especially in the States, is thriving for our particular genre of music. So it's just a matter of getting over there and playing a gig in front of some people, mate. That's it.
No, I couldn't agree more, mate. And has there been some thinking along the lines of, this is going to sound really corny, mate, but I don't know how else to describe it, like an Aussie invasion thing, because there's so many great metalcore and deathcore bands from Australia at the moment.
It's been said so often. I mean, Parkway Drive, North Lane, Die Is Murder. Even the guys in Polaris. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Polaris. They've just released a great new album on Resist Records that's doing really great things for those guys. I honestly think some of the best heavy music talent in the world comes from this country. I think Australian artists just really get it. I don't know. There's something about just being away from all the hysteria of metal in some other countries. We almost have to have a fresh spin on the genre. Otherwise, people just don't notice us because we're so easy to be ignored because we're so far away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree.
The conditions just seem right, don't they?
Well, we tend to exist, even with social media, in like isolation still.
Absolutely, yeah.
A lot of our ideas, actually, this is a good question to ask you. Musically speaking, when you guys are forming ideas, is there a bit of a riff bank in the cloud that you draw ideas from that are deposited whenever they come about, or do you guys get into a rehearsal room and go, right, lads, or does the guitarist say, right, lads, I've got this riff, let's do this?
Well, this is interesting because this process did change quite a bit from the last record to this one. So in the past, we had, like you said, a bit of a riff bank, a few riffs that was sort of floating around. Whereas this record, each song was written start to finish, unimpeded by any other song. So one song would be started and finished before any other song would be started on. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make complete sense.
Yeah, but all the while, each of these tracks has had heavy thoughts about the musical arrangement in terms of the post-production and some of the symphonic sounds and the soundscape in general. Each track actually has a visual setting that is interpreted through the music, which is something that I've personally never heard of. But I thought we'd implement that. It'd be a really good idea. So, we've gone along that path with the sound of the music as well as the lyrical content in some aspects, as well as the visualization. So you were making note of our music video for Derailed. Derailed, I mean, musically and lyrically is the personification of a reckless runaway freight train. And another single we just released called Fallout is the visual setting of that track musically and lyrically is that of a burning house, which is symbolic of, I guess, of my trashed marriage. We definitely employed a few different approaches with writing music for this record. A big thing was we wanted, on the whole, we wanted this record to sound like metal music meets movie soundtrack, which I think we've accomplished. And I think Josh Schroeder was the perfect producer to help us accomplish that vision. The guy's just got such a knack for big sounds and a really vast soundscape. And I'm sure you'll hear them on the record.
No, I couldn't agree more in terms of the movie soundtrack reference. It's definitely there, and I think that's what gives you guys a bit of an edge. Actually, is that I would never call it symphonic, in the black metal sense, but mate, there is that depth that some electronic sounds could offer music, and it's used very tastefully through your take on metalcore.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. And I mean, for our producer Josh, at the end of the whole recording process, to say, you know what, guys, the metalcore genre is swarmed with so many different bands trying to nail down, a sound or a particular style or whatever. He said that your guys' record, it just sounds like nothing I've ever heard from a metalcore band ever before. So it's a really special thing to I guess accomplish a sound and to find a sound for ourselves that is unique from everything else that's out there, and I think we've done it. So,
mate, I agree. So, how can people get in touch with you? I mean, obviously there's social media and the like. So, what are the social media links that they can get in touch with you? Because I believe the album's due to be released in the next few days.
It is, yes. It comes out on December 15th, so this Friday. And I mean, the usual music links. So we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and things like that. But in terms of music links, you can hear our tracks on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, pretty much any kind of music service that people are using, you'll find our music on there. So it's an amazing thing, isn't it? The digital age where people can just punch in a band name and have access to their entire catalogue. Look, it's not always been that way.
I enjoy. I really appreciate the digital age when a band like yourselves can rise above the rest of the crop. That's where I appreciate it. But there are a lot of bands that I think are very good that get buried by all of the volume of information that's available out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, the downturn is that everyone's fighting for that attention.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but mate, the point of this call or this discussion is, mate, that you do have a wonderful release. You do have a release that I think, as I mentioned earlier, has very long legs. You're going to be successful in the States. No doubt you're successful in Europe, and you'll enjoy some success here, mate. So congratulations on the album.
Thank you, man.
good luck with it, really. I mean, I sincerely mean that. I think you guys have a very bright future in store for you. You know, I mean, it sounds like you got a good head on your shoulders, mate. And I've watched a few of the videos that you put up there where you're talking with. Is it your drummer that does the clean singing?
Yes, our drummer. So our drummer, he does our singing, and I do the unclean screamed vocals. So
yeah, gotcha. Well, mate, you know,
good fun.
Good fun, mate, and mate, good luck on the tours, mate. I'd love to see you guys do like a long tour in the States and give you guys that kind of exposure over there, because I know you got almost 60,000 likes on your Facebook page, mate. But I think it'd just spike to, you know, some of these bands. Miss May I, Levi's a fantastic bloke, actually. I mean, when they've got, I think, how many? God, I won't talk out of my ass because I don't know how many Facebook likes they've got.
They've got over like something like 500,000 or 600,000.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I knew it was a couple of 100,000. So I think you guys need to be at that level because I think you got the quality release.
Oh, thank you, mate. No, I do appreciate that, and you know, we've obviously yet to have the album come out just yet, but mate, very high hopes for when people get their hands on it and can really sink their teeth into it. We've done really great with pre-orders and things like that, both in the States and in Australia. So, you know, we have our record, you know, on CD and on vinyl and merch bundles and all that kind of stuff on a store here in Australia called 2400, as well as you know, a few different carriers overseas. So yeah, mate, it is very exciting, and obviously we're almost there. It's only a couple of days left, and mate, I do appreciate the kind words. Thanks very much for that, and I appreciate you having a chat with me.
My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and you are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. That was my conversation with Shane Carrol, one of the members of the band For All Eternity. Thanks so much for listening.